How were you born? After coming into your mother's womb, you had to travel a whole journey. You crossed many difficult stages in which you came into this world. In today's episode, we are going on this journey where you will know that once your size was smaller than a grain of rice and gradually you took the shape of a human child. Why are you what you are today, and how are you? How did the qualities of your parents get transferred to you? Today we will hear the story of your transformation from a single cell to a complete human being. This is the second episode of the series. If you have not watched the first episode, then click on the link given in the description and comment of the video and watch the first episode, because only then you will understand this video. After the union of the sperm and the egg, something happens inside the egg which will show the way to the new life to come. Everything is decided here. The sperm that fuses inside the egg also brings 23 chromosomes with it. The same thing happens with the egg of a woman, it also has 23 chromosomes. Now what are these chromosomes? In simple terms, chromosomes are like a bundle of a very long thread. This thread is nothing but DNA. It decides everything from our eyes, nose, ears, height and color to all those things that will develop inside us. All this information is in our DNA as a code, and chromosomes are formed from a bundle of a very long thread of this information. 22 pairs of chromosomes of both male and female decide the color, appearance, and many other things of the child to be born, but the remaining one pair of chromosomes decides whether the child to be born will be a boy or a girl. That is, one pair of chromosomes out of 23 determines the gender of the child. These two chromosomes that decide the gender can be of two types, X and Y, where X is female and Y is male. Now it completely depends on nature that which sperm of the man will meet the A of the woman. If the male sperm with the X chromosome meets the female's A, then they will have a girl. On the contrary, if the egg meets the sperm with the Y chromosome, then they will have a boy. After the sperm fuses in the egg, 23 pairs of chromosomes of both the male and the female meet each other, which creates a new genetic code. And at this time the gender of the child, the color of hair and eyes and many other such things are decided, which will give birth to a completely new life. After a few hours of this, the cell present in the egg divides into two parts, after which both of them divide into 4, then into 8, then into 16 and so on. But it is not so easy, because 70% of the eggs fail in the first 6 days in this process, at which time the woman is not even aware of all this. But if this happens properly, then the body of a new creature begins to develop. And this egg is no longer an egg but starts turning into an embryo. But in its early stage, sometimes this embryo grows in two parts, which results in the formation of two almost identical copies of it, and this is the reason for the formation of identical twins. But here we should know the difference between identical twins and fraternal twins. Twins can be of two types. The first one is when a single egg divides into two parts. The children born in such a condition are called identical twins. Whereas fraternal twins develop when two different eggs fuse into two different sperms. In such a condition, it is not necessary for their faces, blood groups and other things to be the same, whereas in identical twins all these qualities are the same. Parents may be happy to have identical twins, but this can also be dangerous. Sometimes the embryo also fails while dividing. The dividing embryo has to separate completely into two parts in the first 2 weeks. If this does not happen in the first 2 weeks, then it fails to divide completely. This is a condition which modern science has just started understanding. Children born from such embryos are conjoined and are called conjoined twins. But the probability of this happening is 1 in a million. The part of the body of the twins will be conjoined depends on which cells of their embryos were not completely separated. Whatever happened to the egg till now was happening inside the fallopian tube, and through this tube, the egg was slowly moving towards the mother's uterus. After about 3 to 4 days, this egg gets stuck in the lines of the uterus which were prepared for this. This process is called implantation. When this happens, the amount of hormones increases in the body which do not allow these lines of the uterus to be destroyed. To maintain them, the woman's periods also stop. Now this egg has come into the mother's womb and it has changed from an egg to an embryo. Now it needs nutrition. That is why it develops a yolk sac in its initial days, which will nourish it until some other arrangement is made. The embryo now has two parts, the inner part of which develops the child and its outer part joins the walls of the uterus and develops rapidly for the next 14 to 20 weeks as a new temporary organ which is called placenta. This happens because the yolk sac will not be enough to nourish the growing baby after a while. The fetus will need more nutrition. Once the placenta is ready, it is formed from the material left over from the yolk sac. The umbilical cord develops, which is also called the umbilical cord. It acts as a pipeline between the baby's navel and the placenta. Now blood from the mother's body passes into the placenta, through which oxygen, glucose and other nutrients are filtered and reach the baby's body through the umbilical cord. Apart from this, the placenta also uses this cord to remove waste products and carbon dioxide from the baby's body. The most surprising thing here is that the placenta filters these nutrients and oxygen from the blood and sends them to the baby's body, but does not allow the mother's blood to enter the baby's body in any way. Because if this happens, both the mother and the child can die. During the time when all this happens, many major changes take place in the fetus. Let us now look at them. The cells inside the egg start dividing and by the second week they change. Every living creature on Earth goes through this process before being born, which is called gastrulation. Each of the divided small cells decides which part of the body it will become. The heart, brain, muscles of the baby and the rest of the parts develop further through these small cells. After 3 weeks of growth, a tiny mole also develops in the embryo. Till this time, the human embryo looks like the embryo of other creatures on Earth. But after 10 weeks, it starts looking like a human embryo. At this point, the face of the embryo also emerges. After a few weeks, the embryo connects to the mother's blood supply through the placenta and then grows rapidly. At this time, the baby gets nutrition from a part of whatever the mother eats. As the baby grows inside, the size of the mother's womb starts increasing many times more than before. Many hundred times more than its normal size. The placenta and umbilical cord form a strong bond between mother and child in which all the hard work is done by the mother. For about 9 months, the baby gets nourishment from the mother's womb, and during this time, this womb is the world of that tiny life in which it gets everything it needs. And finally a new life comes from that world to this world, which once started with the union of two very small cells.